What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brook. Welcome back to another Crafted Workshop video, and welcome to the shop tour in the new shop. In case you guys are either new to the channel or you just haven't been paying attention for the last 2 months, I have been in the process of building out this new shop space. It's been a heck of a process. A lot of work has gone into this, but I'm really excited with the way the whole thing's come together. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for a shop tour now that the shop is pretty much finished, so I figured I would record one real quick. So this is the door obviously into the shop, and then to the immediate left, I've got my new dust collector. It's the Clearview EF5. I did just put out a video on installing that and installing all of this new ductwork, so you guys can go check that out. And then here to the right, I have my new Powermatic 3520C lathe. I am super excited to have this thing in the shop. I think having this new lathe will allow me to do a little bit bigger and better turning. I know my buddy Ashley Hardwood lives not too far from here, so I'm hoping to have her in the shop at some point, but I'm pretty excited to get into turning. Then over here to the right, I've got my new lumber rack, which is basically just a bunch of these fast cap speed braces, which really turned out perfect. They're rated at 1,000 pounds per pair, which is absolutely insane. And these are the 15-inch by 18-inch ones, so they come out 18 inches off the wall, which gives you plenty of depth. And then on 2 of them, I added a little bit of plywood just for any of those small parts and pieces that might not work well on the 16-inch on center spacing. So then over here to the left, I've got my plywood cart, which I did a video on. This thing works really well. I actually don't use it for moving around very much, so I might make some changes to this, but I think it tucks away nicely here against the wall. I'd actually hung up a bunch of my table saw accessories before deciding to put the plywood cart here, so I'm gonna have to rearrange those a little bit, but that's one thing I'm really loving about having all the plywood walls in this shop, is that I can just pop a screw in pretty much anywhere and hang stuff up. So that's been really nice. And then we continue around here, I've got my table saw, which you guys have seen before. I have added a few things. I've added their kind of sliding crosscut table, which is really awesome. This thing is super high quality, very smooth. It's got some really nice stops built in that are very accurate, so super excited to have that for breaking down sheet goods and just cutting parts to length. And then on the right side of the table, I've added the router table insert. Because of that, I have had to change to their older style of the overarm dust collection. Their newer, kind of more expensive overarm dust collection does definitely work a lot better. It's got a dedicated 4-inch port on it, but it interferes with the router table. So kind of had to switch back there. I'm gonna see how this one does. I might end up playing with this a little bit more. Obviously, table saw dust collection is a pretty big one, but I'm excited to have this router table here. So continuing on down, we've got the miter saw station, which just like it was at the old shop, I love this thing. Not only is it great to have a nice in-feed and out-feed support for the miter saw, but then have all of these cabinets and cubbies for storage. It's just really a super useful piece. And then we can move on over here to the kind of milling section. I've still got this jointer currently, the PJ882HH, the 8-inch helical head joiner from Powermatic, but I am going to be upgrading to their 12-inch helical head joiner, and I'm super excited about that. Not really sure how I'm going to move it into the space because that thing is crazy heavy and does not have a mobile base, but really excited to have a 12-inch jointer. Just gonna be nice to have a little bit more of a bed width there for jointing wider pieces. And then speaking of new machines, I also upgraded to the Powermatic 209HH, which is their 20-inch helical head planer. Again, just having more bed width there is gonna allow me to plane wider things. Super excited to have that thing in the shop. I still have the same drum sander. Love this thing. Powermatic drum sander works great. I figure having those two right next to each other makes a lot of sense since they both kind of have a dead area on the left or right side depending on the machine, and usually you're going to be running those two kind of one after another, so makes it really easy just to go from the planer to the drum sander and you're pretty much ready to go from there. So from there we've got my bandsaw. This is the Powermatic PM1500. Love this bandsaw. It's an absolute beast. Works really well. It's got great dust collection because it has 2 4-inch ports, which is really nice. So while we're over here at the bandsaw, I just want to take a second to mention that this video is sponsored by Powermatic, and they've been a long time sponsor of this channel. I love using their tools. I'm super excited to have all of the new Powermatic gear in the shop. Got their new lathe, their new dust collector, which you'll see here in a second, their new planer. I will be getting their new jointer. So really excited. Obviously their tools are super high quality. They've helped me be a more efficient woodworker. And if you guys want to learn anything more about them, check out the links in the video description below. And thanks again to Powermatic for sponsoring this week's video. One other thing down here on the floor, I have this Powermatic air filter, which is another thing I've kind of added to the shop here recently. I'm actually planning on, I think, putting that on a French cleat so I can hang it up on the wall. I did put in French cleat basically around the entire perimeter of the plywood walls. So continuing on from the bandsaw, we've got the drill press. It's a great drill press, works really well. It's got the Woodpecker's drill press table on there. Got a Forstner bit set from Rockler that I'm really excited to have. We'll probably get those wall mounted as well. Again, getting everything up off the floor. Really nice to have those plywood walls. So speaking of that French cleat around the whole shop, here at the drill press, I've also hung up a couple of items. Basically, I was able to make mounting brackets for my ladders, my sawhorses, my roller stands, all those kind of things that I use a lot, but usually are just kind of leaned up against the wall and in the way. And the nice thing about those being on a French cleat is if I want to move them, they're really, really easy to move and rearrange everything. So from there, we've got my kind of workbench French cleat wall area, which is very similar looking to the old shop. It actually looks almost identical. This French cleat wall setup has been something I've really loved having. It worked super well at the old shop, so I figured if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So basically just made it the exact same here. I still have my Joburg's workbench. Love this thing. This is one of their elite workbenches. It's super, super sturdy. It's got 2 vices, bunch of storage underneath, and it works really well. So without a good workbench, you're gonna have a hard time using hand tools. So over here to the right of the French cleat wall is this Craftsman cabinet. This is where I'm storing all of my finishing supplies. So I used to have all my finishes on kind of open shelving, and they would get covered with dust, and it was just really annoying. All of my brushes and, you know, little mixing containers and all that stuff would get super dusty. So having an enclosed cabinet for all of my finishing supplies is really nice. So then from the workbench, if we turn around, we've got my assembly table, which obviously used to be my outfeed table. And you might have been wondering why there was a big empty space on the other side of the table saw. And that's because I think in this shop with this layout, it's very kind of long and narrow. I think it just makes more sense for this to be down near the workbench and kind of in the outfeed area of the planer and near all the clamps and all that kind of stuff. So I love this assembly table, but I just think it makes a lot more sense over here. The other nice thing about this setup is I can get my Festool vacuum kind of tucked away in that cubby area on the back side of the assembly table so that it's out of the way and so that this vacuum hose can reach the entire table surface. So when I'm sanding or, you know, using the domino or whatever, I can work at this entire table and have room to use whatever tools attached to this vacuum system and to the power cord really easily and have it nice and out of my way. So this is really kind of how this system is designed to be used, with the vacuum kind of tucked underneath whatever table you're working on. I always had it to the side, which meant that anytime I was working on the opposite side, it was quite the stretch, and sometimes I'd tip over the whole vacuum and it wasn't good. So definitely excited to have this set up in this orientation. So continuing on, I guess we'll stick with the woodworking stuff for now. I decided to put my router table and spindle sander over here as well. I think having them kind of right next to the CNC makes a lot of sense, but they're also next to this Powermatic dust collector that I also added to the shop. So obviously I've got the Clearview dust collector at the front of the shop, but the run from up there to back here would be about 60 feet, which is super long. It would not do very well at dust collection at that point. Also, the ductwork would have gotten crazy expensive, so I figured adding another dust collector back here, both for the X-Carve as well as these 2 tools, as well as just general shop cleanup, made a lot of sense. So I did briefly mention my CNC. I've got the Inventables X-Carve, which you guys have, I'm sure, seen quite a bit on this channel. I like it a lot.
I like it a lot.
I think it's a great CNC for what it is, a great kind of starter CNC and really upgradable. I did add T-Track work holding to it as well as a bunch of other upgrades, so I did do a video on that. If you guys missed that, I'll link that as well. I'm hoping to dive a little bit more in on the software side and start messing around with V-Carve and doing some 3D carving and that kind of stuff. So I definitely plan on using the CNC more this year. So that's pretty much it on the woodworking side. So we can go ahead and move over to more of the metalworking side. So over here, I've got this Craftsman tool cabinet. I have most of my kind of metalworking tools, sockets, wrenches, all that kind of stuff that usually goes with metalworking, but also just with general kind of assembly and things like that. I love having that cabinet though. It's allowed me to be way more organized when it comes to that type of stuff. So having everything just nicely tucked away and easily accessible, and obviously knowing where all of my tools are in this side of the shop. Not something I had before and has really made that side of things a lot more efficient. So moving on from there, I've got my Fear belt grinder, which I absolutely love. I use this thing way more than I think I thought I would, even on woodworking projects, and it's just surprising how handy that thing has been. Here's another new tool that I've gotten since moving. This is the Jet metal cutting bandsaw, which I am really excited to have. Having a metal cutting bandsaw like this will make cutting things accurately a lot easier, especially when you're doing stuff that's angled. These bandsaws work really well for that. So moving on from there, I've got the Portaband on a swag stand up here, which I use this all the time for making quick cuts on steel. I think this is one of the greatest little accessories you can add to your Portaband. Obviously, I still haven't gotten all of the VersaTrack mounted on the wall yet. The metalworking area tends to be the last thing to get organized again, just because I don't do it quite as much, but I definitely will be using that whole system again. So continuing down from there, I've got just my metal chop saw. The chop saw is great for just really quick cuts, and I designed the stand for this chop saw to be the even height with the workbench over here in the metalworking area, as well as my welding table, so that provides some in-feed and out-feed support there. So then from there, I've got my weldtables.com welding table, which I did a video on in case you guys missed that. I really like this thing. The one thing that I might do differently in this space is get one that's a little bit narrower, because I like to weld outside whenever I can, just to keep all the sparks and the grinding dust and all that kind of stuff outside and not get that all in the shop. And unfortunately, this table is just a little bit wider than the doorway outside in this shop. I know they do sell a little bit of a narrower size, so I might try to change over to that just to work a little bit better in this space. On top of my welding table, I've got the new Lincoln PowerMig 140 MP, which is still in the box. Of course, I still have my PowerMig 210 MP, which has been my kind of main welder for the last couple of years. And then the last thing here in the metalworking area is my kind of dedicated metal drill press. Whenever you're using cutting fluid and things like that on steel, it makes a huge mess. So I like to have a dedicated drill press for that. This is just an older drill press I had. It happens to have a metal table and all that stuff, so it works out really well. So I guess the last thing here at the back of the shop is the bathroom. If you want to check that out, my spirit animal, Ron Swanson, got the Ron Swanson poster. I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions about anything I might have skipped over, let me know in the comments. Again, I'm certainly not done in here, but things have come a long way since I took over this space. Main projects coming up in here are gonna be getting that outfeed table built, then get back to regular projects. So I'm super excited to kind of get back to building furniture. I mean, that's really why I got into all this stuff. The shop projects are fun, but that's really, I think, the things I enjoy the most. So again, let me know if you guys have any questions. Hopefully you have enjoyed this whole shop build series, and hopefully you're excited to see my upcoming projects. So thanks for watching, y'all. If it's your first time to the channel, go ahead and get subscribed and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. And until next time, happy building. So, you know, 15, no, the Powermatic, oh yeah, and so thanks for, yeah.